devotees.
Hare Krishna.
All glories to the assembled devotees.
Hare Krishna.
All glories to the lotus feet of Sri Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. Oh,
Hare Gaur.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Hare Krishna. Good morning, everyone. Thank you
Hare
for...
Krishna. Our glories to Srila Prabhupada. Please accept my humble obeisance.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Today we continue our study of Srimad Bhagavatam. We are in the third canto, 19th chapter. Today's verse is 37. Yovai hiranyaksha vadham mahadbhutam vikriditam karana sukaramanaha shrinonti gayat yanumodate jasa vimuchyate brahma vadhad api dvijaha Yovai hiranyaksha vadham mahadbhutam vikriditam karana sukaratmanaha shrinoti gayat yanumodate njasa vimuchyate brahma vadhad api dvijaha Yovai hiranyaksha vadham mahadbhutam vikriditam karana sukaratmanaha shrinoti gayat yanumodatenjasa vimuchyate brahma vadhad api dvijaha. Please chant.
Hare Krishna. Yo vairagnaksho badham mahadbhutam vikriditam karana shukaratmanaha shrinoti gayati anumodate anjasha vimucchata brahma badhat api dijo. Hare Krishna.
Yovadam madabhutam vikriditam karana sukaratmanaha shrinoti gayatyanu nitchasa vimuchyate brahma vadadapi dvijaha. Hare Krishna.
Yo vai hiranyaksha vadam mahadbhutam vikriditam karna sukharamana shunoti gayatyanumodate vimuchyate brahma vadapi vidvijaha. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Yo vai hiranyakshavadham mahadbhutam vikriditam karan yukratmanaha shrinoti gayati anumodate yagyasa vimuchayate brahma vadadapi dvijaha. Hare Krishna.
Anyone else? Yaha, he who, vai, indeed, hiranyaksha vadham, of the killing of Hiranyaksha. Maha adbhutam, most wonderful. vikriditam, pastime. Karana, for reasons like raising the earth from the ocean. Sukara, appearing in the form of a boar. Atmanaha, of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Shrinoti, hears. Gayati, chants. Anumodate, takes pleasure. Anjasa, at once. Vimuchyate, becomes freed. Brahma vadhat, from the sin of killing a Brahmana. Api, even. Dvijaha, O Brahmanas. Translation by Abhaycharan Arvinda Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. O Brahmanas, anyone who hears, chants, or takes pleasure in the wonderful narration of the killing of the Hiranyaksha demon by the Lord, who appeared as the first boar in order to deliver the world, is at once relieved of the results of sinful activities, even the killing of a Brahmana. Purport. Since the personality of Godhead is in the absolute position, there is no difference between his pastimes and his personality. Anyone who hears about the pastimes of the Lord associates with the Lord directly, and one who associates directly with the Lord is certainly freed from all sinful activities, even to the extent of the killing of a Brahmana, which is considered the most sinful activity in the material world. One should be very eager to hear about the activities of the Lord from the bona fide source, the pure devotees. If one simply gives oral reception to the narration and accepts the glories of the Lord, then he is qualified. The impersonalist philosophers cannot understand the activities of the Lord. They think that all his activities are Maya. Therefore, they are called Mayavadis. Since everything to them is Maya, these narrations are not for them. Some impersonalists are reluctant to hear Srimad Bhagavatam, although many of them are now taking an interest in it just for monetary gain. Actually, however, they have no faith. On the contrary, they describe it in their own way. We should therefore not hear from the Mayavadis. We have to hear from Sutta Goswami or Maitreya, who actually present the narrations as they are, and only then can we relish the pastimes of the Lord. Otherwise, the effect on the neophyte audience will be poisonous. The verse again, O Brahmanas, anyone who hears, chants, or takes pleasure in the wonderful narration of the killing of the Hiranyaksha demon by the Lord, who appeared as the first boar in order to deliver the world, is at once relieved of the results of sinful activities, even the killing of a Brahmana. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminate Namane Namaste Sarasvate Devi Gauravani Pacharne Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschati Deshatarne Om Ajnana Timirandasha Ananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Vanchakalpa Trubhyas Chakrapa Sindubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Okay, so today's verse is what is known as the Palashruti of this pastime. Palashruti means the fruit of hearing. What is the result of hearing? Today, we find that the result of hearing is that one is relieved of the results of sinful activities, even the worst sinful activity, that of killing a Brahmana. A few points in Srila Prabhupada's purport that are very important for us to understand. So the second sentence here, anyone who hears about the pastimes of the Lord, because first of all, it's established that the Supreme Lord is non-different from his name, his qualities, his pastimes, because he's absolute, right? The absolute position means even if you're just hearing his name, you're actually associating with the Supreme Lord, right? So being on that absolute platform, hearing the pastime of Krishna is like interacting with him personally, experiencing the pastime. So after establishing the absolute position of the Supreme Lord, how he's non-different from his name, form, qualities, pastimes, then it's implied or it's obvious that anyone who hears about these pastimes then is actually associating with the Lord directly, right? And since everyone who associates directly with the Lord is certainly freed from all sinful activities, then even to the most extreme extent of killing a brahmana, then therefore hearing about him, since he's absolute and since he is non-different from that, certainly has the potency to cleanse us from all sinful activities. Then Srila Prabhupada says one should be very eager to hear about the activities of Lord from a bona fide source, the pure devotee. Right, so we have to make sure we're paying attention to who we're hearing from, to make sure they're authorized, to make sure that they are presenting that which has been presented by their spiritual master, untouched. So preserving the disciplic succession. And if one simply gives oral reception to the narration and accepts the glories of the Lord, then he is qualified, right? So it's not just the hearing part, that's the external feature, right? The sound waves going into the ears and analyzing them and understanding what they mean. It's that then we're accepting the glories of the Lord, accepting his true position, right? So not just hearing the story, but understanding what Krishna's position is, what our position is, and what our relationship is, right? If we're able to do that, if we're able to understand his true position, just hearing his pastimes will be able to deliver us from all kinds of sins, even the worst kind. Then, of course, Srila Prabhupada talks about how sometimes you can hear the external topics of Srimad Bhagavatam, but from someone who doesn't have a proper conception of who Krishna truly is, right? So the Mayavadis who think that Krishna is Maya, everything to them is Maya. Hearing from such people who have their own conception of what the Shastra is trying to say is actually not beneficial. It can be harmful, as Srila Prabhupada mentions there. It can even be poisonous, right? It's like milk that was touched by the lips of a serpent. So when describing the reason why hearing from the Mayavadis is detrimental is because he says actually they have no faith. Since they have no faith, that means they do not know the position of Krishna. Therefore, when hearing about it, even though hearing about it is non-different from him, since they don't have faith in him, it's not going to have this effect. They're not going to be purified by these sinful reactions. They're actually committing more, right? And then he continues to say, after he says the reason why is because they have no faith, he continues to say, on the contrary, they describe it in their own way, right? So they're not referring to the way that the authorities have described it. They're describing it according to what their own understanding is, or how they've filtered it through their own process of understanding, right? So they're giving, although they may be speaking the words, relaying the pastimes, and the words, the names of Krishna and his pastimes are non-different from him because he's absolute. Because they don't have faith and because they're not describing it according to the authorized chain of disciplic succession, then it actually can become poisonous to hear. So these are important things for us to to understand when we're hearing about Shastra. Because I remember the first time I heard one of these Pala Shrutis, I was so excited. I said, well, how lucky am I that I just happened to be sitting here listening to that story, because now I don't have to worry about the pangs of birth and death in this material world, for example, right? So each pastime has one of these Pala Shrutis, which tells what is the fruit of hearing. But again, it's not just the fruit of, having had that oral reception, but of understanding that who Krishna is, and therefore fully appreciating the extent of that absolute nature, and seeing how these pastimes and hearing about them are non-different from actually associating with him. Right. So it takes that understanding, that faith, that knowledge of the relationship, that sambandha, in order to truly get to have access to this benefit, to receive this benefit that is being presented here. Right. Just like with chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, Krishna is also non-different from his name. So when we're chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, Krishna is there on our tongue. He's non-different from those syllables, Krishna. But since we are committing offenses throughout our lives, when we say Krishna, even though he's absolute and he's actually there, we're not necessarily perceiving him there. So in the same way, when we're hearing these pastimes, if we're hearing these pastimes through the filter of our mundane understandings of how activities are performed in general, and we aren't truly convinced through and through of Krishna's supreme nature, meaning we are still not convinced that we can't independently exist and try to control and enjoy our situations. Until that's given up, we do not get the full benefit of these Pala Shrutis. Means that is the potential that's there if we're able to understand it completely, right? So the benefit is that if we continue to hear, right, even though we're not on this level that we can receive the full manifestation of these Pala Shrutis, since the potency is there, is if we continue to hear and chant and appreciate these pastimes, then more and more the knowledge will be revealed to us, the actual knowledge of Krishna's position and our position, and more we will act accordingly. So more and more the sambandha will be revealed, the relationship, and we will act accordingly. We will perform this abhideya of understanding Krishna and his nature and his position, his characteristics, his qualities. And then the more we hear with faith in the line of disciplic succession in an authorized way, then we will be able to reap the benefits of these Pala Shrutis. Of course, at that point, we'll no longer care about these things, because then the most important thing will just be pleasing Krishna. Whether one is relieved of sinful activities, that's not something that's of any importance any longer. As long as Krishna is being pleased, I don't care if I have to. Right. So that's the ultimate mentality that the devotees cultivate. So while going through this verse, and many of the Pala Shrutis, of course, will have these words, Shrinoti, or some version of the word Shrinu, Shrin, and to hear, like Shrinvatam Svakata Krishna, so forth, and Gayati, Gaya, chant. There's one particular verse I'm thinking about, and again, these two words, they're in so many verses. But think in general, not of a Pala Shruti, but in general of describing what we can hear and chant about. There's a verse, and let's see if anyone knows it. If anyone knows it, please unmute yourself. That's talking about the effects of hearing and chanting, authorized descriptions of the pastimes of the Supreme Lord. Anyone? I'll give a hint. Instead of Shrinoti, the form of Shrinva is Shrinvanti, and then the Gayati is Gayanti instead of Gaya. So that's just in a different form. Does anyone know a verse that has Shrinvanti and Gayanti in it? Okay. This is actually first canto, 5th chapter, verse 11. It goes, Tadvag visargo janataga viplavo yasmin pratishlokam abadadha vyapi namanyanantasya yasun kintaniyat shrinvanti gayanti grananti sadava. And so this is the second of a pair of verses, which are both very important to us. So I'll read the translation of the first of this pair of verses first. Those words, which do not describe the glories of the Lord, who alone can sanctify the atmosphere of the whole universe, are considered by saintly persons to be like unto a place of pilgrimage for crows, since the all-perfect persons are inhabitants of the transcendental abode, they do not derive any pleasure there. And then the next of that pair of verses, on the other hand, that literature which is full of descriptions of the transcendental glories of the name, fame, forms, pastimes, and so on of the unlimited Supreme Lord, is a different creation, full of transcendental words directed toward bringing about a revolution in the impious lives of this world's misdirected civilization. Such transcendental literatures, even though imperfectly composed, are heard, sung, and accepted by purified men who are thoroughly honest. Right. So what we are attracted to hearing and to repeating says a lot about what our sense of values are, right? So just hearing these pastimes, again, it has the potential to free us from all of our sinful activities. But if we're not exclusively and repeatedly hearing about these activities, in other words, if we're hearing and chanting about activities that are not fitting this description, that fit more the description of the first of those pair of verses, that don't glorify the Supreme Lord, that if the topics that we are hearing and discussing aren't actually acknowledging the Supreme Lord's position, if we're just talking about ourselves being independent enjoyers and controllers, and if that's the bulk of what we're hearing and what we're speaking about, then we are not proper recipients of these palashrutis, right? Not full recipients, meaning there's certainly going to be some purification. The fact that at some point of our day, we're willing to hear about Krishna instead of hearing about, our own glories or the possibilities of us becoming great controllers and or enjoyers in this material world. So then there's some purification. But if we want the full purification to the extent that we're actually experiencing or associating with Krishna, we're actually experiencing these pastimes as we hear them, then we have to exclusively hear of these things. Everything we speak. So in Nectar of Instruction, we learned that the way to control the speech, vacho vegam, it's not to stop talking, right? It's not to cut out the tongue to stop talking. It's to speak, but only on topics of Krishna, right? And so the same thing with the ear. It's not that we stop hearing things. It's not that we get noise-canceling headphones. No, we have to hear about Krishna, because controlling the senses doesn't mean negating or denying use of the senses. It means putting those senses to use in a proper way, in an appropriate way that's favorable to the cultivation of devotional service. So the more we're able to do that, right, through the process of sadhana bhakti, um, uh, uh, utilizing the fantastic opportunity we have, the wonderful opportunity we have of associating with devotees, um, by undergoing the process of sadhana bhakti, cultivating an understanding of Krishna consciousness, by giving up the things that are holding us back, doing that anartha nivritti, by becoming steady in that practice to the point where then we actually get a genuine taste for the process, and then that further will turn into an attachment, right? Not just something that we want to have, but something we need to have, and so on. As we take this process seriously, and the more and more we hear and chant Shrinoti and Gayati, the more and more we hear and chant about Krishna, and the less we speak and hear about things that are not related to Krishna, the more we're able to become purified. And then, of course, then all of these various sinful reactions that have been committed are vanquished immediately. They're gone. They're because where there's light, there can be no darkness, right? So if we're associating with Krishna in his pure form, then no darkness is there. So even the greatest sin, even if we've committed the most abominable activities in our lifetime, none of that will matter, because we have the pure consciousness, understanding Krishna, the association of him. And so all of those things are counteracted. So I know, like I said, the first time I heard one of these palashrutis, I thought, oh, well, good. Now I don't have to really put forth so much effort to try to counteract any of the bad things that I've done, because this just took care of it. And this, of course, is another mentality that is described in Nectar of Instruction that we should not have, right? This the idea, there's the idea of atonement that is given, and it's compared to an elephant's bathing. We see, or those of us that have seen elephants bathe, it's quite a spectacular sight. They very much love to be in the water. They very much love to bathe. They're having a great time in there. Multiple times a day, they like to be just submerged in water. But as soon as they get out, they pick up some dust with their trunks and they throw it all over their body for whatever reason. And so this idea of atonement, if we continue to commit the same sins, even after understanding that they were sinful, then there's actually the atonement has no effect, because it's not at least encouraging it. In other words, if we're doing atonement and then we're trying to gradually commit fewer and fewer sins, then the purpose of atonement is okay, because we're gradually making some forward progress. But if we're just saying, hey, sinners are going to sin, there's nothing we can do about it, and we'll just allow the Supreme Lord to take care of it, but we're not willing to put forth any effort on our own part to take care of it, then this whole process is actually useless, right? If we're not connecting to that principle, right? So we have to be mature and intelligent enough to understand that the difference between just external hearing, right, and actually understanding the principle and the point. And it has to be proper hearing, right, from an authorized source. It can't be misconstrued or adjusted for whatever reason, for any external purpose. And that's just on the speaker side. But then from our side, from the side of the listener, we have to understand what our duty as listeners is to be, which is to actually understand the principle of what is being said and understand how we can apply that in our lives, right? So certainly 100% hearing this pastime and understanding the nature of the Supreme Lord and his qualities and characteristics, and his feeling the need to reciprocate with his devotees in very specific ways. The deep love and affection that the devotees have for him, but also the deep love and devotion that he has for his devotees, that he's willing to take on these strange forms that will reciprocate with their particular needs and their desires and their level of attachment to him. When we hear these pastimes in this way from an authorized source and with the proper understanding of who Krishna is and who we are, his servants, then, of course, the full benefit of these palashrutis, the full benefit of hearing that are given, that's when we get that full benefit. So until then, we keep hearing, of course. It's not that we stop hearing, but it's not that we just put on headphones and listen all the time, but we let our mind wander elsewhere and we don't cultivate this, this true understanding. So this cultivation has to be there. We have to understand the principle. We have to understand that what is the difference between externally following something and actually internally following it. And to the extent that we're able to do that, then we will be able to reap the benefits that are explained in these types of verses. So at the beginning, it's tough, right? Because for such a long time, from the time we remember, like when we were little, we don't remember our previous births, of course. Maybe some people do. Most of us don't. Most of us have trouble remembering what we did yesterday. But we do have some memories of our life early on, and we have experiences that, because of our conditioned nature, we very much think that we are the body, even though we know theoretically that we're not the body, because the body is made up of various things that are not conscious. We, on the other hand, are conscious. So we can theoretically understand it, and to some extent we even have this confirmed ideas of us not being the body, us being different from this external body. We still very much act as if we are this body. We know that we're not, but we still act as if we are. When something happens to the body, we're still very much identifying with it and acting as if we are the body. So it's a process that takes some time, but the more sincere we are, the more faith we put in Krishna, and the less we try to depend on our own actions or thoughts or explanations, or meaning the more we rely on Krishna, the less we rely on ourselves or others not connected to Krishna. Meaning we connect with Krishna and anything connected with him, the devotees, etc. But anything that we perceive that has any importance, if it's not connected to Krishna, that is illusion. That is explained to us in Srimad Bhagavatam Chaturshloki verse 2. So everything is coming from Krishna, so there's nothing but Krishna. So if you think there's value in anything, but you're not seeing a connection to Krishna, then that means you're dealing with illusion, right? The attraction that's there is because of Krishna's potency, but since you're not seeing the connection, then that's when we're dealing with illusion. So at first, this seems tough to be able to fully absorb in just understanding the principle of Shastra, to only hear Krishna's pastimes, to not hear anything else. It seems impossible. We have so many things that we have to do. We have to work. We have to support the family. The people that we're working with aren't necessarily enthusiastic about hearing how the Supreme Lord takes the form of a wild boar in order to pick the earth out of the ocean because some big demon with golden hair and tusks knocked it out of its, proper place. And then therefore there was not necessarily everyone's, going to hear that pastime and be uplifted and become devotees just by hearing that. But the more and more we hear the pastimes of the Lord and we understand the principle behind hearing, and the less and less we focus on trying to be independent from him, then the more we're dealing with reality, the less we're dealing with illusion. Okay. So yeah, sorry, today's class is very short. I apologize for that. I didn't have a lot of time to prepare. Hopefully there will be some questions, comments, or discussions, though. That's always my favorite part anyway. Anything from anyone?
Thanks for the class. Very nice. This question, you were talking about how we should be listening attentively and trying to, um, realize these things that we're hearing in class and Bhagavatam and whatnot. Is it better to, because some devotees will listen to, just different classes all day long while we're doing things, and maybe we catch some of it and maybe we don't catch some of it. Is it better to do that, or is it better to just listen to have kirtan playing or something like that?
So whatever helps us focus the most. For different people, it will be different. Some devotees are really good at multitasking, so they can simultaneously, cook a whole offering and completely pay attention to a class. Others, sure, it'd probably be more beneficial to listen to kirtan. But it really just depends on what is actually connecting us. Because for some people, kirtan, they're just mainly appreciating the musical aspect, right? In other words, they'd have music on anyway, so at least they're hearing kirtan, so that's better. But if it would be more beneficial for that person to hear some classes, and if they're going to be able to focus on, in other words, if the task that they're performing, it's a task that they can do without so much thought, and they can actually hear, then that's going to be more beneficial. So it's going to depend on the circumstance. And from a neophyte point of view perspective, it's difficult to make that. It's difficult to assess which one of those is actually going to be more beneficial to us, because on the neophyte platform, we have a trouble distinguishing reality from illusion, because we're mainly focusing on the externals, because that's what we're familiar with, right? When we ask a question on the neophyte platform, we want a direct answer, right? And just like right now, I'm giving you an answer that's not direct. I'm saying it depends on the circumstance. So we have to have the intelligence to assess the situation. From the neophyte platform, we can't assess the situation because we're not familiar with the subtleties of it. So we just want someone to say, look, just tell me, should I listen to kirtan or should I listen to class? Or should I, just talk to the devotees that I'm with and make it more personal? It's not that simple. It never is, right? Because for different people in different circumstances, something else is going to be more favorable. So for ourselves on the neophyte platform, that's a difficult thing for us to determine which is going to be best for us, which is why sadhu sangha and acceptance of guru and taking his instructions is essential. Because if we don't have that, we're just going to focus on these externals and think that we're doing the right thing, but we're actually not getting as much benefit as we potentially could were we to actually rely on the instructions. Because the guru and the sadhus can see, right? They understand the subtleties, so they can understand our nature, so they can say, in this situation, it's better for you to listen to kirtan, right? In this situation. But for others, they would say, in this situation, it's better for you to listen to class, right? So until we can make that distinction for our own selves, which is more favorable for our service, we have to consult those who can actually perceive for us, who can actually have a conversation with us and understand what our motives are, etc. And they can give us the best advice on whether in each particular situation it's better to listen to a recording of a class or a recording of a kirtan, or just to actually have a class or a kirtan, or to have a discussion, right? Discussions are often the best thing to do. Let's say we all just heard a class, right? and now we're performing some service together. And my perception of what I understood from the class is going to be very different from what you perceive from the class. All the same topics were discussed, but because we're coming from different backgrounds and different experiences, something different will stick out, or even the same point will stick out to us, but we will see it from a different perspective. And having a discussion from all of those perspectives helps us to broaden our understanding of what we heard. Generally, we have an understanding that relates to us because we're very self-centric. But hearing how each of these other devotees is relating to it broadens our general understanding. And then we start to actually see that it's not about us and our understanding, the external, it's about the principle of bhakti. And then we can start actually recognizing that principle, and then we can act accordingly. Then it's easier to make the decision, should I listen to right now a class or a kirtan or just have a personal discussion? Right. But at first, again, we can't really maturely make that decision for ourselves. So we have to rely on sadhu sangha and the instructions of the guru and like that. Is that a satisfactory answer, dear brother?
Yes, Prabhu. Thank you.
Thank you. Hare Krishna. Anything else? Acharya Prabhu, what do you have to add?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thanks a lot for the great class. I found it interesting, and also it made me happy how you said that early in your Krishna consciousness you also had experience with a Pal Shruti verse you mentioned. So I also had that an experience with that, and I wanted to share it, but I also wanted to know if is this like a common experience that devotees meet these verses and it hits them or influences them. So after I tell mine, I'd love to hear if other devotees have had experience with it. Actually, before I took up any processes of Krishna consciousness, I became a life member and I got a bunch of books. And then I went away to college and I didn't have any association with devotees. But I was reading Srimad Bhagavatam, only the first canto I had. And in the chapter, third chapter, Krishna is the source of all incarnations. There's a list of all the avatars. And then at the end of that list, it says, whoever hears these list of the incarnations with great devotion, I don't know, remember if it's a daily or in the morning and evening, will be freed from all material miseries. And I read that and I thought, I'd like to be freed from all material miseries. So even though I wasn't really practicing very much, I was just getting started and I was still engaged in all sinful activities, but I started reading that chapter every day.
Nice.
And I don't know if at the time it really like freed me from any material miseries. And to this day, however many years later, it's still like an ongoing process. But it did strike me and it did inspire me to actually do something and read that chapter and read regularly. So I'd love to hear if other devotees have had experience with these Pal Shruti verses and how it struck them. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Yeah, I'd like to hear from others too. Anyone else have an experience like that? Of first encountering these and imagining that our devotional life is now complete? Or it inspiring us to pay more attention? Anyone?
Hare Krishna, it's me again. Sorry. I just read that verse that Acharya Prabhu was talking about a couple of weeks ago, and I thought, I could do this. I could read this every day. This is incredible. But I didn't do that. But maybe one day I will do it. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Yeah, the fact that you're encouraged by it and you know that if you do it, your life will be better. That's a good start. And that's where most of us are, actually.
Can I throw out a quick comment there?
Yeah, please.
Here, I mean, there are so many of these Pal Shrutis that there aren't enough hours in the day to like fulfill all of them. So I think if we make a habit of reading Srila Prabhupada's books regularly, I think that sort of fulfills the spirit of all of them.
Right. That's
even
what I
if
was
we don't
trying
do
to
okay.
get.
in this chapter it says this and that. But if we're just reading Prabhupada's books regularly, we're getting all of them.
Absolutely, 100%. Yeah, that's what I was trying to imply with when I referred to verse 1.5.10 and 1.5.11. That just in general, because of Krishna's absolute nature, there are these specific ones that are giving, specific sort of benedictions. But just in general, if we're focusing on the principle of it, which is, understanding, or meaning reading about Krishna and understanding his position, then because of his absolute nature, we're actually going to be directly associating with him. So the more we do that, the more we just read Srila Prabhupada's books, and the more we pay attention to that, instead of paying attention to any other books or information we might be collecting, then the better off we'll be, and the more likely we will be to fall to, or to become recipients of these Palashrutis. Thank you. Yeah. Anyone else?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. For me, the Falashruti, what I have learned, and then especially after coming to ISKCON, is Falashruti for me used to be, whatever I'm asking for, whatever material desires I have, those would get fulfilled. And so for that reason, I will offer this prayer and that prayer, or I'll go to the temple, or when I was very young, and I keep repeating this so many times, I'd write a wrong answer on my test and I'd go to the temple and please make that answer right so that I was wanting capitals to be changed because I had written the wrong answer. But coming here, I have learned that's not how that Falashruti is supposed to. So for me, that is the biggest learning that has happened. What I have done since then, have I progressed? I don't know. But to me, it is progress that I've at least learned that's not what prayer is for, is to go ask. So that is my story with Falashruti.
Thank you for sharing that. That's wonderful. Oh, yes. As Acharya Prabhu he's quoting from Srimad Bhagavatam, Akama sarva kama va moksha kama udaradi. Whether we have all desires, all fathomable desires, or no desires at all, or desire liberation, we should approach Krishna. So, yes, even if we're trying to convince the world that the capital of North Carolina is actually Buffalo, right? Because we misunderstood it. So we want God to just change the whole rest of the world because of we don't want to be wrong. Yes, no, that is an appropriate time to approach Krishna. But as time goes on, as you mentioned, we should understand who Krishna really is, who we really are, and then we'll start asking more appropriate things. Yeah, as time goes on, because it's all about it's what is it, the way Padma Purana states it, always remember Krishna, never forget him, and then this is it. So, but always remembering him means, in order to remember him, you have to know actually who he is. And then since we're the ones that are remembering, we also have to know in relation to him, who are we? Right? So if we know him as the supreme and we know ourselves as the servants, we stop acting as if we are the controller and the enjoyer, and we stop asking him to do what we want. In other words, we stop being self-centric and we start being God-centric. Start finding out what he likes and what he wants to do. But it doesn't matter, as whatever platform we're on, if we're approaching Krishna instead of someone else, that's a very good start.
And then I think for that reason, I'm very grateful. I think because of that, I turned my direction and I have come to the right place. Doesn't matter what speed I am progressing at, but I'm at least progressing in the right direction. And so for that, I'm very, very grateful. Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Thank you. Anyone else's experiences with Palashruti verses?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. I believe everyone who has come from some kind of religious background definitely has experienced. If you were studying because, if you were a student, you would, do your prayers before and after your exam, regardless of what faith you come from. Right? So I believe we all have that. But what really was a game changer is I don't remember which lecture of Prabhupada, but and Prabhupada said, because even after coming to Krishna consciousness, I am doing stuff and I'm like, oh, Krishna, please, my computer isn't working. Like, please, I got to get this report in, right? So we're always, regardless, doing that. But internally, what really has helped, and again, it's not like I don't slip up and still don't say things to Krishna, but in one lecture, Prabhupada said, the real result is Krishna. If you get Krishna, everything is achieved.
Mhm.
That was like, that really stuck with me. And so, the trick of saying, if you so desire, is what I have started practicing. It wasn't easy. I just have to say that, admit that.
Yeah.
but yes, I just wanted to share that.
Yeah, exactly. Perfect. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, because initially us stepping out of the center is we're still asking for what we think is right, but then we say, just as you said, if you so desire, meaning that we're still seeing things according to our perspective. We're still in the center, but we're also acknowledging that we're wrong and that he's the center. So we're giving that if you so desire part, right? And then eventually we'll just understand what his desires are because knowledge is revealed, right? And I've been saying this a lot lately because it's important for us to understand that when we're cultivating bhakti, we're not building anything, we're just uncovering something, right? So that means it's a whole lot easier. If we had to build our way to Krishna, there's no way it could happen. Just like you can't build a stairway to heaven, although people try constantly. We're just uncovering something. It's our nature. The nature of the jiva is to have this, but since we misused our free will, we don't have access to it. There's coverings, right? So the process of uncovering helps all of this be revealed. So it takes these steps of being just completely self-centric and demanding that Krishna do this, and then understanding that, okay, well, this would be nice if you so desire, to, please Krishna, just reveal to me what is to be done so that I know how to act. And it'll keep going, it'll keep evolving as time goes on. But yes, it's important for us to understand this, and then to wherever we are, doesn't matter which platform we are, to get closer and closer to making it more about Krishna and less about us. That's the trick. Thank you. Thank you.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Are we supposed to ask every silly thing to Krishna for help?
Sorry, say that again. I missed
Are
it.
we supposed to ask every small thing Krishna for help?
Yeah, if you want to ask anybody for something, that you ask Krishna or his devotees.
But
Because
every small thing.
Yep. Yep. Because otherwise, in other words, if it's a question, then that's who you ask, right? Krishna or his devotees. Once the faith becomes very strong, there are no more questions. So then that's when you don't ask because you don't have any questions. But if you have a question, absolutely, you approach Krishna. If you're approaching anyone else,
Yeah.
that means you're putting your faith that someone else can give you a better answer.
Because I always used to think, no, it's small things. If I ask Krishna, he has a lot of big things to do.
We don't want to bother him with our petty little things, but actually he's unlimited. He can deal with it. So whatever doubts we have, he's happy that we're coming to him instead of going elsewhere.
Mm.
Even if we're trying to satisfy our material desires, he wants us to come to him for that instead of going to, some bogey. Right.
Okay.
So if we think something is important, we present that to Krishna, and then gradually we will actually know what is truly important and what is not important. So it's not a burden for him to go to him with seemingly petty things. But when we do that, and he sees our sincerity and our willingness to always go to him, then the knowledge is revealed, and then we understand what is truly important, what is not. And what's always truly important is the relationship, right? Rasa is always more important to Krishna than
Okay.
Tattva. So whatever we're dealing with, we should go to him.
Thank you very much, Prabhu.
Thank you. And a big thanks to Acharya Prabhu for inspiring that, for bringing out everyone's different perspectives on that. So thank you, Prabhu. I have to end early because I have to get to an appointment, and my ride just showed up. So I apologize for ending this abruptly. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai.
वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपासिन्धुभ्येव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः. Hare Krishna.
All
Thank
right.
you very much.
Thank you.